Rebirth. I actively cut off all ties with Ethan Carter. When he applied to the University of Defense Technology in Hunan, I switched my application to the University of Technology in Beijing. The goal was clear: to ensure we'd never meet again. Living in completely different parts of the country. When Ethan came back home during the new year and tried to see me, I drove off for a trip overnight. I didn't answer his calls or reply to his texts. When he was transferred to the city where I worked, I immediately applied for a job relocation. I didn't even want to see him. In my past life, I loved him for 30 years and endured 30 years of his indifference. By my 40s, I was diagnosed with cancer. On my deathbed, Ethan was busy decorating his new home, and the two sons I had painstakingly raised were too preoccupied with their weddings to visit me. I died alone in a cold hospital room, waiting for the end. Such a failed and tragic life. I will not live it again. After resubmitting my college applications, I finally felt a sense of relief. I wouldn't have to be entangled with Ethan anymore. No one knew I had been reborn. The early application deadline was noon tomorrow, but I was worried the system might crash, so I changed my application late at night. In my previous life, I spent my whole existence chasing Ethan, resenting him, and ultimately ruining myself. This time, I won't have anything to do with him. I want us to live in completely separate worlds, never crossing paths. July 13th marks my 18th birthday. On that day, I will publicly tell him, I won't marry you. You're free now. There are 15 days left. As I stepped out of the internet cafe, a text from Ethan appeared on my phone. I'm out with friends and might be home late. Cover for me. Thanks. I casually replied, sure. Ethan and I grew up together. Our fathers were comrades in arms, and our mothers were best friends and colleagues. I lived at his house for 3 years, always calling his mom Aunt Linda. She treated me better than she did her own son. I secretly loved him, but he was in love with Ashley Morris. Initially, I planned to keep my feelings hidden forever and just be the little sister he always saw me as. But on the day of the college entrance exams, Ethan took me to a bar. While I was in the restroom, 2 men harassed me. If Ethan hadn't come looking for me when I didn't return, I can't imagine what might have happened. Being assaulted was an unbearable humiliation. I almost took my own life. Aunt Linda blamed Ethan for not protecting me and forced him to agree to an engagement out of guilt. Ethan reluctantly agreed, promising to hold the engagement party once our college acceptance letters arrived. Ashley couldn't accept Ethan's engagement and caused a huge scene. Ethan kept finding excuses to comfort her. In our past life, Ethan truly loved Ashley. He was willing to sacrifice everything for her. His principles, his future, and even his conscience. The more I clung to him, the more I lost. And the more I lost, the more unwilling I was to let go. I did everything I could to fight against them, hoping they would suffer as much as I did. In the end, Aunt Linda, who had once been like a mother to me, cut all ties. The 2 sons I had worked so hard to raise grew to despise me. I overheard them saying, if Mom's life is so miserable, she might as well die early and let Dad and Ashley finally be together. It's been 30 years. They deserve it. This time, I won't play the villain tearing them apart. I won't care about those 2 ungrateful sons either. I'll let them have each other and free myself. Changing my college application was the first step toward staying far away from Ethan. It was also the first step toward living for myself. In my previous life, to stay close to Ethan, I gave up my dream school and followed him to the defense university he admired so much. The strict military-style management was far harsher than I had imagined, leaving me physically and mentally exhausted. What hurt the most was watching Ethan and Ashley exchange flirtatious glances right under my nose. I was filled with rage but didn't dare confront them because I was the intruder. Later, Ashley was suddenly expelled. Ethan thought I was behind it and never treated me kindly again. After college graduation, Ethan delayed our wedding endlessly until he received Ashley's wedding invitation. Ashley Morris hastily married a rich, aimless second-generation heir to cut off any lingering feelings Ethan Carter had for her. Disheartened and numb, Ethan went through with our wedding like a lifeless shell. After the marriage, Ethan avoided me as much as possible. He spent years without coming home, and when I visited him at his military base, he preferred to cover a colleague's shift rather than return to his quarters to spend time with me. Aunt Linda frequently called, asking if I was pregnant yet. She even sent me an entire set of intimate lingerie, desperate to win Ethan's approval and eager to give Aunt Linda the grandson she wanted. I shyly put on the lingerie and climbed into his bed in the duty room. Ethan, however, pointed at me in disgust and called me shameless. I couldn't take it anymore. That very night, I packed up and left, determined to divorce him no matter what. Ethan returned home, apologized, and gently coaxed me into reconciling. He finally fulfilled the long overdue consummation of our marriage. 3 years late, that one night left me pregnant with twins. I foolishly thought that having children would make Ethan step up as a husband and father, but I eventually realized that the children could only tie me down, not him. The only person who could hold on to Ethan was Ashley. Even when Ashley's provocations caused me to go into labor prematurely, nearly costing me and the twins our lives, Ethan still defended her without hesitation. To make me forgive Ashley, he knelt in front of me and stabbed himself twice, claiming it was penance for her sins. At the time, I was still in the hospital, and our 2 babies were in incubators. Ethan didn't ask about me or the children even once, let alone visit them. When I got home, a video from Ashley popped up on my phone. In the video, she and Ethan were dancing intimately, their movements charged and electrifying. Aunt Linda, who had just returned from her night shift, noticed me staring at the screen. Curious, she leaned over to see what I was watching. When she saw the video, she was furious. That boy, leaving his fiancée behind to dance with some outsider? I'll skin him alive. Aunt Linda slammed her palm on the table. And that Ashley, the nerve of her, clinging to Ethan even though he's engaged. Tomorrow, I'm going straight to her parents to set things straight. Ashley's father worked as a security guard at our school, and her mother was a janitor. Aunt Linda, as the school's administrator, had always been considerate toward them. That was, until she discovered that Ethan was secretly involved with Ashley. Aunt Linda valued social status and saw Ashley's background as unworthy. She wanted Ethan to marry me because of my family's standing. My father was a major, my uncle a principal at a prestigious provincial high school, and my uncle-in-law held a director position. My connections could help Ethan build a bright future. To break them apart, Aunt Linda would nitpick and criticize Ashley's parents whenever she saw them, hoping they would take the hint and step back. But neither Ashley nor her parents were willing to let go of Ethan, clinging to him persistently. In my past life, Aunt Linda and I joined forces to try to drive Ashley away from Ethan, but we failed. By the time I was on my deathbed and Aunt Linda was too old and powerless, Ashley finally married Ethan and even won over my 2 sons. This time, I won't interfere with them, but I also won't stop Aunt Linda from acting as the gatekeeper to the Carter family. If Ashley wants to become the daughter-in-law of the Carters, she'll have to get through Aunt Linda first. Aunt Linda had one method for punishing Ethan: a feather duster. A single stroke left a bloody welt, and she never held back. After one such beating, I thought Ethan would blame me for tattling and avoid me. Instead, he came to apologize. "I'm sorry for making you misunderstand," he said. "Ashley and I were just dancing. Nothing more happened. Don't worry. I know my place. I won't do anything inappropriate." He spoke sincerely. If I hadn't seen the kiss mark on his neck with my own eyes, I might have believed his nonsense. Ethan had always been a liar. As a child, he tricked me with little gifts, making me cry, laugh, and fuss over him. Yet, I never thought he was a bad older brother because he spoiled me. After I gave birth, he lied, claiming he had cut ties with Ashley Morris. I believed him and brought our 2 sons to his military base to celebrate his birthday, only to find Ashley and her daughter in his dorm room, surrounded by women's belongings. Later, when I was gravely ill, I asked him to visit me in the hospital. He said he was injured and couldn't move, but in truth, he was busy preparing for his wedding with Ashley. In my past life, Ethan lied to me for decades. This time, I won't believe a word he says. As long as I don't believe him, he can never deceive me. I smiled gently and said, "There's no need to explain. I have no right to interfere with your freedom." When Ashley sent me that video, your mom happened to be beside me. I didn't tattle. She just had bad luck. Flaunting your love like that often backfires. If Ashley hadn't deliberately tried to provoke me and assert her dominance, Aunt Linda wouldn't have humiliated her. Ethan gave a bitter smile. How can you say you have no right to interfere? Once we get our acceptance letters, we're supposed to get engaged. Once we're engaged, I'll be yours entirely. I'll follow your orders, serve you wholeheartedly, and devote my life to you. That won't happen, I replied calmly. I won't get an acceptance letter from the National Defense University, and I certainly won't marry you. There's no need to force yourself or make hollow promises. Just endure for 14 more days. Ethan. He frowned. What happens in 14 days? It hit me. He didn't even remember my birthday. I pushed him out of my room. 14 days until you regain your freedom. I'll let you go. After submitting my college application, I had to prepare for the military medical exams. Under Aunt Linda's strict supervision, Ethan didn't sneak out to meet Ashley again. However, he spent his days glued to his phone, constantly on calls or video chats with her. Every time Aunt Linda caught him, she beat him with a feather duster, leaving red welts across his back. She even handed the duster to me, urging me to vent my anger as well. I couldn't be bothered to waste my time or energy. Forget it, I said. Ethan, mistaking my indifference for reluctance to hurt him, seemed moved. Don't worry, he said. Ashley and I are just talking about normal things between friends. Nothing else. I know I'm engaged and won't cross any lines. An engagement means nothing. I thought to myself. Even a marriage certificate wouldn't stop him and Ashley from running off together. I gave him a vague hum in response and left it at that. Every day, between running laps, long jumps, sit-ups, and studying for the psychological tests, I was too exhausted to care about whom Ethan was flirting with. Ethan, on the other hand, was deeply worried that Ashley wouldn't pass the interview phase. He asked me if I had any connections to help her. If I wanted to help, of course there would be a way. I said flatly, but why would I inconvenience my family for someone I dislike? Don't you always advocate for fairness and justice? He retorted. Why would you refuse to make an exception for Ashley? Ethan was clearly displeased with my response, but he said nothing more. After that, he stopped speaking to me entirely. His coldness didn't bother me. I had long since grown accustomed to his indifference. Aunt Linda assumed the silence between us was due to the pressure of the exams and didn't dwell on it. Instead, she focused on preparing delicious meals for us every day. The morning of the military medical exam, Ethan returned from the garden with a single rose. Aunt Linda chuckled. That boy is finally learning. He knows to bring you flowers now. I didn't have the heart to tell her that the one who loved roses was Ashley. That rose wasn't for me. The moment we met, Ashley Morris slapped me across the face. You're despicable. Taking Ethan wasn't enough for you. You even got Aunt Linda to fire my parents. Ashley's parents had indeed been dismissed from their jobs. Aunt Linda's anger this time was real. But what did that have to do with me? Ashley didn't dare confront her future mother-in-law directly, so she came to vent her frustrations on me. Did she think I was weak and wouldn't fight back? Raising my hand, I prepared to return the slap, but Ethan stepped in to block me. They've lost their jobs, and things are hard for their family. Please don't hold it against her, he said softly. If you're really upset, hit me instead. Hit me as many times as you want. I laughed bitterly. So because her family is struggling, it's okay for her to slap me? Am I just her punching bag? I turned to Ethan and asked, who are you to her that you feel you can apologize and take the hit on her behalf? It seemed that Ethan had forgotten one crucial fact. We weren't engaged. As my supposed fiancé, he should have been defending me. But even so, he didn't let go of Ashley's hand. If it weren't for what happened back then, he began hesitantly, we wouldn't even be engaged. And my mom wouldn't have targeted her parents. Ashley's already feeling terrible. Can't you just cut her some slack? In my previous life, when Ethan and I were at the National Defense University, he would always say similar things whenever I had a conflict with Ashley. He knew how much I hated being reminded of that incident. Yet he brought it up repeatedly to guilt me into backing down. To protect Ashley, he had no problem stabbing me in the heart over and over, as if I couldn't feel pain. And now, here he was, doing it again. But this time, I wouldn't yield. I met his gaze coldly and slowly pried his hand off mine. Ethan, worried I might escalate the situation and cause trouble for Ashley, pleaded with me in a low voice. Please. She didn't mean to hit you. She was just too upset. Taking a deep breath, I cut him off. Should I call the police? Then, Ethan froze. He knew that if I reported the incident, Ashley would lose any chance of passing her interview. After a moment of hesitation, he stepped aside. Without a word, I slapped Ashley, but in the final moment, Ethan couldn't bring himself to let her take the hit. He pushed her aside and offered his own face instead. The slap landed hard, leaving a vivid red mark across his cheek. Ashley cried out in shock. Ethan, why would you let her do that? She doesn't deserve to hit you. I'll make her pay for this. Ethan stopped her. His eyes reddened with emotion. Is it enough now? He asked me. The sight of their angry, aggrieved faces made it seem like I was the unreasonable one in this situation. Whatever. I muttered to myself. Just 12 more days. And this will all be over. Endure it. Ethan was entirely focused on Ashley, worried that the stress from her parents' unemployment might affect her performance in the interview. He didn't even notice that I wasn't in the same exam hall as them. It wasn't until the physical fitness test that he finally realized. Did you change your application? He asked. I didn't want to talk to him, so I lazily nodded in response. Ethan seemed annoyed. Why? Did you suddenly think you couldn't handle the full military discipline and decide to give up? He pressed further. What's your first choice school? If you tell me, maybe it'll cheer everyone up and save me some trouble. Beijing University of Technology. I said casually. Ethan murmured instinctively. So far away. Staying distant is probably the best way to avoid disrupting your happy little life together. I didn't respond and walked past him. As I stepped down the stairs, someone suddenly pushed me from behind, though I managed to grab the handrail. My foot twisted awkwardly. The injury wasn't severe, but it would undoubtedly affect my physical test performance. Ashley sneered behind me. You almost ruined my interview. Now it's your turn to fail the physical test. I glanced briefly at the surveillance camera above us and said nothing. The test was about to start, and I didn't have time to waste on Ashley. When the examiner learned about my twisted ankle, he moved my name to the end of the list and even arranged for someone to massage my foot. The first event was a 50-meter sprint. I finished in 15 seconds, disqualified. With only 4 events in total, I had to pass all the remaining 3 to qualify for the early admission track. Otherwise, I'd have to compete with the general pool. The examiner looked at me with obvious concern. The standing long jump was next. My first attempt barely reached 1.4 meters. On the third attempt, I managed to meet the minimum requirement. Thankfully, I passed the remaining 800-meter run and sit-up events. As soon as I left the test site, I called the police. Ashley was arrested. Ethan was frantic. After his attempts to negotiate with the authorities failed, he swallowed his pride and came to me. May, can you forgive Ashley? She didn't mean to. I looked at him coldly. Have you seen the surveillance footage? If you'd even glanced at it, you wouldn't be saying this. Ethan knew deep down that Ashley had pushed me on purpose, but he still made excuses for her. She misunderstood you about a few things. I'll talk to her. I promise. She won't do anything to hurt you again. Ashley had always believed that the incident at the bar was a trap I orchestrated to separate her from Ethan. They had never hesitated to bring up that traumatic event in front of me, treating it as if it was my fault. And now Ethan dared to reopen that wound. I rejected him outright. Your promises mean nothing. You can't control her. And you don't have the heart to punish her. Ethan looked humiliated, both because of Ashley's recklessness and my refusal to give him any leeway. Yet, he still couldn't let her go. Can't you? I cut him off. She committed a crime, and she should face the consequences. She deserves this punishment, and I won't forgive her. In my past life, I had been too weak, too forgiving. That's what allowed Ashley to repeatedly trample all over me. This time, I was determined to teach her a lesson she'd never forget. Turning back to my room, I felt Ethan grab my arm. His voice dropped to a pleading whisper. If I used the kindness I've shown you over the past 10 years to ask for this one favor, would you give me this chance? For the past 10 years, Ethan had truly been good to me. He treated me like a real little sister, always protecting me, indulging me, and even taking the blame for my mistakes. He fought for me, stood up for me, and defended me. After my mom passed away, he was the only thing that kept me from falling into despair. Without him, I would have crumbled emotionally long ago, let alone had the strength to get into Beijing University of Technology. It was precisely because of his kindness that I could never let go of him in my past life. I always hoped he would eventually turn back to me. I had no parents to rely on, no siblings to support me. There was only him. Back then, I didn't understand that once a man has someone in his heart, he will no longer care for his childhood companion. In this life, there would be no connection between us anymore. It was time to repay the kindness he had shown me. Fine, I said firmly. Remember what you just said. From now on, we owe each other nothing. Seeing my resolute tone, Ethan panicked, as if he wanted to say something more. But I shook him off and closed the door behind me. Unable to get me to open the door, Ethan sent me a text. May, I'm sorry. I've made you sad again. See, he knew exactly what he was doing. Yet he still chose to protect Ashley without hesitation. Apologies meant nothing. They didn't change his actions. He was just following his heart. And that was fine. I didn't love him anymore. Whatever pain this caused me, I could endure for just 6 more days. When Ashley was released, not only did she show no remorse, but she became even more aggressive, taunting and insulting me. You're nothing but a parasite living under someone else's roof, she sneered. Why are you pretending to be so high and mighty? And calling the police? Do you think that actually works? Don't you know Ethan's father is a military officer with strong connections? You're so shameless, clinging to Ethan like this. Even if you manage to hold on to him for now, how long do you think it'll last? When we get into the National Defense University, we'll barely come home once a year. Do you think you'll even get to see him? Even if Aunt Linda protects you, she can't drag Ethan back to you from school. Ethan doesn't even like you. How could he possibly fall in love with you just because of the responsibility you forced on him? He's never going to get engaged to you, let alone marry you. Just give up already. I was busy picking out a dress for my coming-of-age ceremony and had no intention of entertaining Ashley's nonsense. But seeing her ridiculous arrogance, I decided to offer her a kind reminder. Did Ethan never tell you? I asked lightly. My dad is also a major, the same rank as Ethan's father. My uncle is a school principal, and my other uncle is a director. If I wanted to ruin you, even Ethan couldn't save you. Ashley's face twisted in disbelief. You think Ethan used his connections to get you out? He didn't. He begged me to forgive you, swore to me that you would never try anything again. And only then did I let you go. If I hadn't agreed, you wouldn't just be barred from the National Defense University. You wouldn't get into any school that requires a political review. Do you understand? Ashley snorted derisively. You expect me to believe you have such powerful connections? You're bluffing. In 3 years of high school, who's ever seen your dad? Has your uncle, the principal, ever bent the rules for you? And a director? Is that even a big deal? You're just a pathetic freeloader, clinging to the Carter family for food and shelter. Those 4 words, pathetic freeloader, stung deeply, even though my family background was excellent, and there were plenty of people willing to stand behind me. I didn't have a home. My dad was a workaholic who was rarely home. The last time I saw him was at my mom's funeral over 3 years ago. My uncles were also busy with their careers and families, leaving no one to look after me. After my mom died in a car accident, I moved into the Carter's home. For 3 years, Aunt Linda treated me like her own daughter, and I had come to see her as a second mom. But after being reborn, memories of my previous life surfaced. How Aunt Linda had turned cold and accusatory toward me after my falling out with Ethan. I could no longer bring myself to feel the same affection for her. Every day I spent under their roof felt like torture. Just 3 more days. The day before my birthday, my aunt called me. There's something I've been thinking about for a long time, and I think you should know. She began. We found new evidence about the incident with those men who assaulted you. In my past life, I couldn't bear to hear anything related to that event. Just hearing the word assault would send me into a rage, cutting the conversation short. But this time, I stayed calm. What is it? I asked, curious about what had kept her up so early in the morning. The two men who attacked you. It's likely they were guided by someone. From what they and the bar staff described, it could have been Linda Spring. I froze. They were drunk. And someone led them to where you were. According to descriptions, it fits Linda. But none of the surveillance cameras caught her face. There's no proof she was at the bar. And no evidence she ordered them to do anything. That's why I didn't tell you earlier. Just keep it to yourself. After the call ended, I sat in stunned silence. So the people who ruined my life weren't just those two men. It was Aunt Linda. She didn't like Ashley and had her sights set on my family background. That's why she orchestrated such a vile plan to force Ethan to get engaged to me. I was nothing but a pawn to break up Ethan and Ashley. A stepping stone for Ethan's future. No wonder she always encouraged me to fight Ashley for Ethan's affection. And when I repeatedly lost to Ashley, she grew resentful, seeing me as useless for failing to win Ethan's heart. She left me to struggle alone, raising two sons with no help. When I retaliated against Ethan, she stabbed me in the back, scheming against me. From the start, she never truly cared for me, only for how she could use me. Aunt Linda walked into my room with the big box, smiling brightly. May, I've got a surprise for you. Open it. I took the box, feigning excitement as I opened it. Wow, what a beautiful dress. Thank you, Aunt Linda. She held the dress up to me, beaming with satisfaction. It's perfect. Why don't you wear it on your engagement day with Ethan? Sure, I replied with a sweet smile. I'll wear it when Ethan gets engaged. To Ashley, I'll give her this dress so she can be your daughter-in-law. I'm sure it'll be memorable. You ruined my life, Aunt Linda. Now, I'll make sure you never have peace either. I linked my arm through hers and said warmly, I have a surprise for you tomorrow too, Aunt Linda. My coming-of-age party was held at the city's most luxurious hotel. The guest list was small, just close family friends from both sides and the Carters. Aunt Linda was all smiles, chatting cheerfully with my relatives. Ethan, however, looked uneasy as he exchanged polite greetings with my uncle and cousins. A server walked in and asked, Miss Pan, there's a young lady named Ashley Morris outside. She says you invited her. Should I let her in? Hearing Ashley Morris's name, Ethan visibly flinched, casting an angry glance in my direction. Aunt Linda, on the other hand, curled her lips into a satisfied smirk, her approving gaze falling on me. My aunt shot Ethan a cold look and said mockingly, Is this the same Ashley who pushed you and almost made you fail your physical test? I smiled and nodded, instructing the server to invite Ashley inside. Ethan tried to stop him, but the server ignored him completely. Ashley entered wearing the same white dress she had worn while dancing with Ethan. Her makeup was carefully done, and her hair was styled into an intricate braid. She looked beautiful and confident, standing tall at the entrance. However, when her eyes landed on me, surrounded by family and friends, the sparkle in her gaze dimmed. She looked like Cinderella stumbling into the prince's ball, not just surprised but also deeply insecure. Ethan immediately rushed to her side, using his body to shield her from the prying eyes of the guests. He was so thoughtful. Once, he used to treat me with the same kind of care. What are you doing here? Ethan asked, his voice full of worry. May invited me, Ashley said, her voice trembling slightly. She told me you were going to propose to her today. Ethan, please, don't propose to her. I really like you. I know I can't compare to May, but I like you so much. Her voice grew softer as she spoke, her confidence fading. She had just turned 18, and at my party, she saw the gap between us clearly. If she were Ethan, she would have chosen me over herself too. Clutching Ethan's hand tightly, she looked at him like a drowning person clinging to driftwood. Aunt Linda, growing impatient with the scene, broke the silence. May, why did you invite her here? Her words snapped me out of my thoughts. I gestured to a server, who brought down a large box from an upstairs room. Taking the box, I handed it to Ashley. This is the engagement dress Aunt Linda prepared for her future daughter-in-law. Try it on and see if it fits. Ashley took the box with both hands, her face lighting up with joy as she turned to Aunt Linda. Auntie, are you agreeing to let me and Ethan get engaged? And you're even giving me a dress. Ethan's panic was written all over his face. After so much internal struggle, he had finally convinced himself to give up on Ashley and go through with an engagement to me. He had endured so much, only for me to abruptly call off our engagement and orchestrate this scene where his Cinderella met her mother-in-law. Now, he finally understood what I had meant when I said I would let him go. His unease grew with every passing second. Before he could say a word, I smiled and asked, "Do you like the surprise? I've been planning this for half a month. Ethan, for once, you won't have to say you're sorry or thank me, because I didn't do this out of kindness." Aunt Linda, finally realizing what was happening, panicked. She snatched the dress back from Ashley's hands. "In your dreams, you think you're worthy of this dress? This is for May. I gave it to her so she could wear it on her engagement day." "Aunt Linda," I said calmly, "didn't you tell me yesterday that this dress was a gift for me? How did Ashley misunderstand your intentions?" "She's the one misunderstanding," Aunt Linda snapped, glaring at Ashley. "I accepted the dress but never promised to wear it. Ethan had surprised me with his gift, so naturally, I had prepared a surprise for him in return." Taking the dress from Aunt Linda's hands, I passed it right back to Ashley. "Ethan loves Ashley," I said with a calm smile. "It's only natural for him to get engaged to her." Turning to Aunt Linda, I continued, "You shouldn't tear them apart. True love can overcome any obstacle. You should believe in their ability to support each other and become better together." I then took off the 4-leaf clover bracelet Ethan had given me as a birthday gift and handed it to Ashley. "This is the bracelet Ethan bought. Try it on and see if it fits." Both Ethan and Aunt Linda were completely stunned. "May." Ethan reached out, trying to grab me, but I effortlessly stepped aside and gently pushed the dazed Ashley toward the fitting room. "Go try on the dress. If it doesn't fit, Aunt Linda can have it altered for you," I said. Ashley, beaming with joy, thanked me profusely and left with the dress. Following the server out of the room, Aunt Linda, however, stopped her in her tracks. "Wait, that dress isn't yours. You can't touch it." My aunt stepped in, pulling Aunt Linda aside and whispering, "Let it go. Forcing things won't lead to happiness. That girl doesn't seem so bad. She'll probably turn out fine." Aunt Linda huffed indignantly. "She's just a security guard's daughter. What makes her think she's good enough for my son? If you like her so much, why don't you let her marry your son?" My aunt shrugged with a smile. "She doesn't like my son. Besides, he already has a girlfriend. She's a prosecutor." This only made Aunt Linda angrier. She furiously pinched Ethan's arm, dragged him forward, and shoved him toward me. "Ethan, tell May clearly that you love her, not Ashley. Go on, say it." How could Ethan say something so insincere in front of Ashley? He couldn't bear to let Ashley feel even a moment of discomfort. At the same time, he was painfully aware of all the harm he had caused me to protect her, even sacrificing our friendship in the process. What right did he have to say he liked me now? Even if he said it, I wouldn't believe him. Ethan looked at me with a complex expression, part regret, part frustration. Just as he was about to speak, Ashley came running back into the room, twirling in the dress. "Ethan, this dress fits me perfectly. Do I look good?" she asked, her face glowing with happiness. Ethan nodded, but his gaze remained fixed on me. Ashley, dissatisfied with his half-hearted response, lightly tapped his chest. "You didn't even look at me. Do you not want to get engaged to me?" Ethan didn't reply. His eyes stayed locked on me, more focused than I had seen them in years. Whenever Ashley was around, his gaze would always drift toward her. But now, as I prepared to leave, it seemed he suddenly didn't want to let me go. At the mention of engagement, Aunt Linda lost her composure entirely. If my aunt hadn't held her back, she might have torn Ashley apart right there. Feeling cornered, Aunt Linda resorted to a low blow, bringing up the incident that had haunted me. "In front of everyone," she began loudly, "let me remind you, Ethan's just like a street lamp that failed to guide you. He took you to a bar but didn't protect you, leaving you traumatized. Are you all right now?" Everyone knew this was my sorest subject. In those first 3 days after it happened, it felt like I was suffocating every moment. I was completely unhinged. I couldn't eat or sleep, and I spent every waking moment in chaos. Neither my uncles, aunts, nor anyone else could console me. Only Ethan had the ability to calm me down and help me sleep peacefully. When Aunt Linda suggested that Ethan get engaged to me, there was no opposition. Now, I had finally crawled out of that darkness and decided not to go through with the engagement. Naturally, no one objected to that either. But Aunt Linda's words had the potential to drag me right back into that abyss. My uncle and my mom's brother both glared at her, their expressions turning murderous. Ethan kept giving her pointed looks, silently begging her to stop. But Aunt Linda, oblivious to his signals, continued to tread on my pain. "From now on," she said smugly, "don't go to those chaotic places like bars. Young girls can easily get into trouble there." My uncle slammed his hand on the table in fury, but my aunt held him back. She turned to Aunt Linda with a sharp smile. "You were at the bar that night too, weren't you, Linda? Why were you wearing a mask in the middle of summer? Were you sick? Or was there something you didn't want people to know? If you were there, why didn't you take May home right away?" Aunt Linda's face paled, realizing she had been exposed. She finally shut her mouth. To ease the tension, my other aunt changed the subject. "Has the admission list been released yet? Did you apply to the National Defense University, May?" I set my chopsticks down and replied calmly, "No. I applied to Beijing University of Technology. The list just came out, and I've been accepted." The room erupted in congratulations and praise. But Ashley, oblivious to the mood, sneered, "You? A pampered princess becoming a police officer? Can you handle the hardships? The salary wouldn't even be enough to buy one of your dresses." Ethan immediately reached over to cover her mouth, but she playfully kissed his palm. It was the kind of intimate gesture that might seem sweet in private, but in front of a crowd, it was tasteless and vulgar. Ethan's face turned bright red, and he didn't dare look up. I met Ashley's mocking gaze with composure. "Actually, someone like me is best suited for a career in law enforcement. I can stand firm against pressure, remain uncorrupted by wealth, and dedicate myself fully to serving the people. Someone like you, on the other hand, would harm not only yourself but others too. You'd be bribed with the smallest of benefits and crumble under the slightest threat." My uncle clapped enthusiastically. "Well said. Our public security system needs people like you. On behalf of the Provincial Police Department, I welcome you." My aunt chimed in teasingly, "And on behalf of the prosecutor's office, I reluctantly welcome you as well." Ashley, still ignorant of the situation, sneered at them. "What gives you the right to speak for the Provincial Police Department and the prosecutor's office? It's not like your family owns them." Ethan had completely given up on trying to control Ashley at this point. The amused glances from the room made him wish he could disappear into the floor. Before the meal was even over, Ethan took Ashley and left. Her naivety might have been endearing in private, but when exposed to others, it was nothing but humiliating. Aunt Linda also left halfway through the dinner. After the meal, I didn't return to the Carter house. I stayed at the hotel instead. My aunt sent a server to the Carter house to pack my belongings. I spent 2 days at the hotel before returning to my own home. It had been 3 years since anyone had lived there. Other than the withered flowers on the balcony, everything was just as it had been when Mom was still alive. After tidying up a little, I put on one of Mom's old dresses and lay down on her favorite rocking chair, dreaming of being loved. My mom had been a beautiful and elegant woman who loved dressing up and having fun. She adored me and spoiled me endlessly. Whatever I wanted, she gave me. She used to say, "You've grown up without a father. And you're such a sensitive girl. I have to give you all the love in the world." My mom used to say she had to give me all the love in the world so I could grow up healthy and happy. But I hadn't even grown up yet before she was gone. After receiving my acceptance letter, I took a picture of it and sent it to my dad. I wanted to visit him, but I wasn't sure if he'd have time for me. I waited for his reply, but instead, Ethan sent me a message to apologize. "May, I'm sorry. Whenever you and Ashley had conflicts, I always stood by her and ignored you. I don't like her, and I never thought about marrying her. I just pitied her and wanted to help her." I believed he was telling the truth. He liked Ashley, but not enough to marry her. In our past life, part of his obsession with Ashley stemmed from her being unattainable. The more he couldn't have her, the more he wanted her. But once she was within reach, he found her less appealing. After much deliberation, I replied with one simple sentence. "One day, I'll meet someone who always stands by me." whether it's friendship or love. That was all I ever wanted. Someone who would always be on my side. The day I left for school, Ethan offered to take me to the train station. I declined. It wouldn't be good to make your girlfriend misunderstand. He frowned slightly. She's not my girlfriend. I already explained everything to her. I smiled faintly. She doesn't see it that way. Since accepting the engagement dress from Aunt Linda, Ashley had been acting like Ethan's fiancée. She even sent me a message warning me to stay away from her man. After I blocked her, she resorted to calling and texting relentlessly. It got to the point where I considered changing my phone number. Ethan said nothing, taking my luggage and walking ahead. I deliberately lagged behind, putting as much distance between us as possible. I didn't look at him or speak, ignoring him the way he had ignored me in our past life. He noticed my aloofness, turning around several times as if to say something. But each time he closed his mouth, he knew that some things could never go back to the way they were. Perhaps out of guilt or politeness, Ethan bought me a large bag of snacks at the station's convenience store. I picked out a simple pack of plain sunflower seeds. Surprised, he asked, "You don't like anything else? Don't all girls love snacks like these?" Ashley's name was practically on the tip of his tongue. He couldn't go 3 sentences without mentioning her. Yet he claimed he didn't like her. Who was he trying to fool? Me or himself? Not all girls like those snacks. Ashley does, I said evenly. You remember everything she likes. But you've forgotten that I've always loved plain sunflower seeds. Ethan suddenly covered his face with his hands, lowering his head in guilt. His voice trembled as he apologized. I'm sorry. I smiled lightly, pulling my luggage toward the ticket gate. I didn't even say goodbye, because I never wanted to see him again. I had chosen a sleeper train, allowing me to enjoy the scenery along the way. Across from me sat a girl who noticed I was holding a copy of the Civil Code. Are you a freshman? She asked. Which school are you attending? We soon discovered her name was Vivi, and she was also admitted to Beijing University of Technology. What a coincidence. Our university only admitted 2 girls from our province this year, and I had already run into the other one. Vivi was outgoing and friendly. Within 3 minutes of chatting, she was already calling me Big Sister and added me on WeChat. We read through the Civil Code together, shared our dreams and aspirations, and even traded snacks. The more we talked, the more we clicked. I felt like I had met a kindred spirit in Vivi, as though we should have crossed paths long ago. It wasn't until I got off the train that I checked my phone. Ethan had sent me a message. I'm sorry. I've ignored you for the past 2 years. How can I make it up to you? It wasn't 2 years. It was 30. And I didn't need him to make it up to me. I deleted all of Ethan's contact information and changed my phone number. During winter break, I went home and visited my former homeroom teacher. In passing, they mentioned that Ashley had been expelled and was repeating her senior year. I was surprised. What happened? The teacher hesitated for a moment. I heard it was because she stole something from her roommate. It made sense. Ashley had always been vulnerable to temptation. In our previous life, she was likely expelled for the same reason. But why did Ethan assume it was my doing back then? He had a habit of blaming me for everything bad that happened to Ashley, as though I were a scapegoat for all her misfortunes. In this life, since I had distanced myself from him early on and wasn't at the National Defense University, he didn't suspect me. A year later, while on a mission with senior colleagues, I ran into Ashley at a nightclub. She was cozied up with the sleazy, beady-eyed second-generation air. In that moment, I realized something. In our past life, Ashley didn't marry the idle heir to make Ethan give up on her. She married him because she was attracted to his wealth and status. It was a hasty decision, motivated by greed, but she spun it into a narrative of self-sacrifice for love. She let Ethan believe she had given up everything for him, leaving him racked with guilt for the rest of his life. Later, when she left her husband, she claimed it was because of domestic violence. But the truth was the heir's family had gone bankrupt. By then, Ethan was no longer under his parents' thumb. He had wealth, connections, and power. Meanwhile, my relationship with him had deteriorated. Ashley saw an opportunity to rekindle their relationship and sought his help under the guise of escaping abuse. Ethan, still harboring unresolved feelings and guilt, couldn't turn her away. They easily fell back into step with each other. Ethan, bound by his moral code as a married man, never crossed the line with Ashley. But she wasn't satisfied. She began sending me provocative photos and videos, intentionally stirring up trouble. She wanted me to fight Ethan, to target him, so he'd feel even more sorry for her and protect her more fiercely. Using these petty, underhanded tricks, she drove a wedge between me and Ethan, eventually taking my place. In our past life, both Ethan and I had been pawns in her schemes, and I had lost to someone like her, so miserably it was unbearable. This grudge couldn't just be left unresolved. The heir was one of our targets for the operation. If Ashley's drug test came back positive, it would be over for her. Judging by her indulgent demeanor, it was unlikely she'd come out clean. Through my calculated provocation, Ashley ended up with 3 charges: public disturbance, resisting arrest, and assaulting an officer. She was sentenced to 4 years in prison. During her detention, Ashley repeatedly tried to contact Ethan for help, but Ethan, stuck on campus, couldn't even leave the school gates, let alone rush to Beijing to save her. By the time I reached my 3rd year of college, it was Chinese New Year. At a class reunion, I ran into Ethan again. He was dressed in a military uniform, tall and handsome, exuding righteousness and authority. Among the crowd of meticulously dressed men, Ethan stood out, effortlessly drawing the attention of many women in the room. When they saw me, everyone greeted me warmly, not because they missed me after so many years, but because we had all matured and understood the value of connections. I felt the same way. A strong network was essential for solving cases, and any of my classmates here could become future industry leaders or business moguls. I wasn't afraid of anyone, but I also wouldn't offend anyone lightly. I had prepared myself for Ethan to confront me about Ashley, but instead, his first words were, "That dress looks beautiful on you. It suits your style perfectly." I responded with a simple, "Thank you." Whether he praised or criticized me, it no longer had the power to stir my emotions. One of our classmates brought up Ashley's sentencing. "Ethan, didn't you and Ashley both attend the National Defense University? Why did she drop out and end up in Beijing? What happened with her sentencing?" Ethan sipped his wine and replied coolly, "I wasn't very close to her. I don't know much about her situation." Just like that, he brushed off any discussion about Ashley, the woman who had once captivated him. How ironic. In my previous life, I spent 30 years trying to make Ethan forget Ashley, but he never did. Yet in this life, without me doing anything, they had already parted ways. Was it fate, or was it human intervention? Ethan invited me to visit his home for a few days, but I declined. "My schedule's full. I really don't have time," I said. He looked at me with a hint of sadness. "Is there really no chance for us?" I reminded him calmly, "We're strangers now. After all, you already used our past friendship to plead for Ashley. I told you, we owe each other nothing from now on." Ethan didn't speak to me again after that. Instead, he drank one glass of wine after another. His tolerance was incredible. No group of men could match him. As the night wore on and more women left the gathering, I decided it was time to go as well. Just as I was preparing to leave, Ethan, who had been in the middle of a drinking contest, stood up abruptly. "I'll take you back," he said. Refusing him would have been pointless, so I stayed silent. Ethan escorted me to the hotel entrance, where he finally voiced a question that had been bothering him for a long time. "Why haven't you contacted my mom?" I didn't want to answer, but he pressed on. "My mom hasn't done anything to wrong you. Has she? Why did you even delete her from your WeChat?" Since he insisted on knowing, I decided not to hold back. There was no need to protect Aunt Linda anymore. If anything, letting him know the truth might help him move on sooner. Because the 2 men who assaulted me were acting on her orders. She was at the bar that night. Ethan stumbled back a step, nearly falling. "That's impossible. She would never do that to you." I smirked bitterly. "Why don't you ask her yourself?" He shook his head. Disbelief etched across his face. "No, it had to have been a misunderstanding. My mom treated you like her own daughter. She couldn't possibly have orchestrated something like that." I countered. "If she didn't have anything to hide, why hasn't she contacted me in 3 years? You believed Ashley every time she accused me of orchestrating that incident to separate you two, didn't you? So why can't you believe that your mom might have orchestrated something too? Ethan avoided my gaze, guilt written all over his face. He was clearly beginning to doubt himself. Deep down, he must have suspected me back then. He had chosen to believe Ashley's slander over me, the person he had grown up with. And now, faced with the truth, he didn't know what to believe anymore. He didn't believe in my character, nor did he trust me. Whatever lingering feelings I had for Ethan disappeared entirely. Leave. I don't want to see you again. After Ethan left, I immediately called Vivi and planned an impromptu trip. Ethan tried to contact me, switching between 3 different phone numbers, but I blocked all of them. After graduating college, Vivi and I both started working at the provincial department. On our first day, we were handed a stack of matchmaking profiles. Amusingly, Vivi and I received nearly identical sets. When I went to my uncle's house for dinner, I found yet another stack of profiles, this time personally curated by my aunt. These are all handpicked based on your preferences, she said confidently. They're all clean, with no skeletons in their closets. You could pick one with your eyes closed. I wasn't interested, so I passed the profiles to Vivi. 3 months later, Vivi had a flash wedding. She chose my aunt's nephew, officially making her my relative. 3 years later, Ethan walked into my office. I heard you're still single. Would you consider giving me a chance? He asked. I raised an eyebrow and responded coolly. Do you think that's possible? Ethan smiled bitterly. I knew you'd say that. It's okay. I'll wait until you're no longer angry with me. I've already applied for a transfer, and I'll be relocated here in 3 months. I'm also planning to buy a house nearby. Do you have any recommendations for good neighborhoods? I don't, I said curtly. I'm very busy. Take care. After Ethan left, I submitted a transfer request to my superiors. By the time Ethan purchased a home and came looking for me again, I was already gone. When I turned 30, Ethan found me once more. May, I know you haven't gotten married. Can't you at least consider giving me a chance? I haven't dated anyone these past years. I've been waiting for you. Every time I ran into old high school classmates, they brought up Ethan, praising his success and intelligence while lamenting that he hadn't found the right person. But I never waited for Ethan. My singlehood wasn't because I lacked options. I simply didn't believe in marriage or having children. I have a boyfriend, I said matter-of-factly. Ethan froze for a moment, then chuckled. May, stop joking. I know you're a very traditional woman. If you were truly in love with someone, you wouldn't have stayed single this long. Just then, a tall, handsome man with a toned physique walked out of my bedroom, wearing nothing but a bathrobe. Babe, who's this? A colleague or a new neighbor? He asked casually. Ethan's gaze landed on the faint red marks on the man's chest, his disbelief clear as day. I shrugged and asked, Want to come in for a cup of tea? Ethan turned and left in a panic. I closed the door and was about to head back to bed when the man pushed me against the door. Was that your ex-boyfriend? Did he come to get back together with you? He asked, his voice teasing. I smacked Wei Chan on the forehead. You'd better behave yourself, or I won't hesitate to kick you out, even if it embarrasses your sister. Let's be clear. You're my boyfriend in name only. In harsher terms, you're just a fling. Don't interfere in my personal matters. Wei Chan instantly dropped his dominant facade, turning into a meek puppy as he circled me. I was wrong. Sis, forgive me. I'll behave and fulfill my role as your boyfriend properly. Next time he comes around, I'll act like the bigger man and ensure you don't lose face. After sending Wei Chan away, I immediately called Vivi to scold her. Did you give Ethan my address? What were you thinking? Do you want to see him and your brother fight? If you're trying to mess with your brother, just tell me directly. There's no need to involve outsiders. The loud clinking of her spoon stirring her coffee was like a pig scrambling for food. I just felt bad for him, searching for you everywhere and finding nothing. Was his timing bad? Did he interrupt your sleep? I snorted coldly. If you pity men, you'll be unlucky for life. Vivi sighed dramatically. My poor little brother. If I'd known you had a heart of stone, I never would have introduced him to you. As if I wanted him in the first place. You can still introduce him to someone softer now. It's too late. He just called me asking how he could beat his rival without a title. He's practically proposing marriage with all his indirect moves. But as long as I don't play along, no one can force me into marriage. Marriage, after all, is just a formality. If two people can stay together forever, does a piece of paper really matter? And if the feelings fade, even a marriage certificate won't save the relationship. Isn't freedom and living as you please better? Ethan's perspective. I thought I had all the time in the world to win May back. I thought she just needed time to forgive me. I waited patiently, believing she'd eventually forget the unpleasant past. But then I saw him. That man in a bathrobe in her house. That's when it hit me. She had already fallen for someone else. The girl I had protected for 18 years had been taken away by another man. At that moment, all I wanted was to destroy him. But I couldn't. I had already upset May, and resorting to violence in front of her would only push her further away. Desperate, I turned to her father, Uncle Pan, for help. He'd always liked me, and I thought if he spoke to her on my behalf, I'd still have a chance. But Uncle Pan sighed. I haven't been able to reach her for a year. Do you think I can still influence her? How could that be? He was her father. That's when I remembered. Uncle Pan was rarely home. His relationship with May had always been distant. Even when her mother passed, he only stayed for a week before leaving again. He didn't even return for her 18th birthday. He had never fulfilled his duties as a father. During the most difficult 3 years of her life, it was just my mom and me by her side. And yet, we both betrayed her. The most pitiful person wasn't Ashley, with her modest upbringing. It was May, who seemed strong but was always lonely. She had the backing of several powerful figures, yet none of them were truly there for her. My mom's kindness toward her was calculated. My protection was always reserved for someone else. She lived alone in this world, without anyone who genuinely loved or cared for her. So now, she no longer loves either of us. What had I done? Why did I treat her that way? Why did I think she didn't need me? That she was invincible? Why couldn't I see her helplessness and pain? Now, she has finally let go of me, and even her father. This is the punishment we deserve. Ashley's return. Ashley came to me again, asking for a reconciliation. How could a woman who's been with several men and spent time in prison think she's worthy of my attention? If she hadn't constantly played the victim and begged for sympathy in front of me, May would never have left me. I hated her so much that I wanted to send her back to prison. But when I thought of my mom, I agreed to bring her home to meet her. If you can convince my mom to accept you as her daughter-in-law, I'll marry you, I told her. As I expected, my mom and Ashley tortured each other for over 6 months. The more time they spent together, the more they despised one another. Eventually, their constant conflicts escalated into a full-blown fight that landed both of them in the hospital. My mom threatened me, saying that if I dared to marry Ashley, she would jump off a building and end her life. In the end, I didn't marry Ashley, not because of my mom's threats, but because the daughter of a commander, Yao Qianlin, decided she wanted me for herself. She was relentless, insisting that she wouldn't marry anyone else. The commander, doting on his precious daughter, personally came to ask for my opinion. What could I say? A spoiled and headstrong woman like her was perfect for keeping my mom occupied. Naturally, I agreed to the marriage. On our wedding day, my mom, playing the role of a traditional mother-in-law, demanded that Yao Qianlin kneel and serve her tea as part of the ceremony. Yao Qianlin, who had been pampered and cherished all her life, had never bowed down to anyone. Instead of complying, she raised the teacup and splashed its contents right onto my mom's face. My mom retaliated by raising her hand to slap her, but Yao Qianlin grabbed her wrist, and the two started wrestling in front of the guests. The onlookers stifled their laughter while the commander and my father sat red-faced, unsure of what to do. Both turned to me for help. I sided with no one. This daughter-in-law was the kind of woman my mom had always wanted. Wealthy, well-connected, and beneficial to my future. She had no reason to complain. And Yao Qianlin had fought tooth and nail to marry into our family, threatening the commander countless times. She had no excuse not to accept my mom as her mother-in-law. I poured all my energy into my work, leaving my mom and my wife to their endless quarrels. On good days, I'd visit home to spend time with the kids. On bad days, I stayed at my workplace. Yao Qianlin often praised me, saying I was nothing like other men who sided with their mothers to bully their wives. She called me the perfect husband, capable, ambitious, and loyal. Marrying me, she claimed, was the best decision she'd ever made. Are women really so easily satisfied? Was May the same way? My mom wasn't happy. She complained that I let my wife bully her. I asked her to think about Ashley. Do you really want Ashley as your daughter-in-law? Or would you rather have Yao Qianlin? Without hesitation, my mom blurted out, I want May as my daughter-in-law. I couldn't take it anymore. I stormed out of the house and wandered through the rain, tears streaming down my face. I wanted May too, but it was too late. The woman who once insisted she would never marry had tied the knot. With that man in the bathrobe, she was no longer the little girl who used to follow me around. Nor did she call my mom Aunt Linda anymore. I busied myself setting up my new home. Ashley was no different, constantly trying to weasel her way back into my life. The future is long, but I'll never again call her May. If my mom hadn't orchestrated that night at the bar, maybe May and I could have been a happy family. It's all my fault. Why did I treat Ashley so well, making everyone believe I was in love with her? If only I had understood myself and seen May's true worth earlier. Maybe by now, we'd have children as tall as I am. If time could turn back, I'd give up everything for her.